Okay, show recording begins right now. Welcome to Transformations with Carly and Rick. Straight talk about life, business, and spirituality. Hi, everyone. I'm the Rick part of this equation, and right next to me, about 20 minutes away, is the Carly part. Hey, Carly, how are you?
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing great. Yeah, we got you up early today.
You did. I like our afternoon show. I like the afternoon slot a little better, but that's okay. I can still be bright and chipper as early or as late as I need to.
And we have a very interesting guest today. Would you like to introduce him?
Absolutely. Malcolm Charlaw is actually a good friend. He's actually in a social media group with a group of us, and his background, is like you, a bit of an IT techie man. And yet the other part I love about him is he's like us in a lot of ways in the fact that he's very spiritual, he's very conscious, he's very much about inspiration and empowering people. And so today's topic of conversation is going to be, we're talking about techniques for hypnotherapy, a little bit of neurolinguistic reprogramming or repatterning, whichever word some people like to use. We'll be talking about some of the unconscious stories in our minds, the fear that we hold, and just a lot about the unconscious mind. And Malcolm, I would love for you to chime in and say your name once so everyone can hear how lovely you say it with a beautiful accent, and share a bit of why you chose to leave the IT world, if you will. And I know you and Rick have lots of banter about the IT world as we blend in with the spiritual and the conscious world. So why don't you tell us, I loved your accent, so say your name and also just share with everybody just a little bit of your direction from IT land into inspiration land.
Okay, well, my name is Malcolm Charlaw, and I live in the northeast of England, a place called Durham, famous for its cathedral and castle. And over the last 20 years or so, I've been doing IT support in various roles up to team leading, which I've really enjoyed. And over the years, I've been, as well as helping people with regards to their IT problems, I've also ended up counselling them with regards to personal issues. And even though I'm with them for a short space of time, I just find that I'm able to come up with the right thing that they need to hear at the time. I can only put it down to inspiration from a higher self, whatever people want to refer that to. I will say God. And it just seems to happen. Now, what really forced the change to move into life coaching and mentoring has been more down to, one, the work was starting to ease off, but the main thing that happened was when I was involved in quite a serious accident and not being able to go back into that field, I thought, well, at least I have other skills and experiences that I can now use to help people to a greater level. And so with the help of the group that I'm with you, that's how I've now got into getting to link with people and start encouraging people through the Facebook page.
So, and so people have no clue what he's talking about. Malcolm and I are in a group called Social Media Superchargers. And then in the back of the video and also the blog post I'll put together later, it'll have information on where you can find Malcolm's Facebook page, his Twitter, and also have links to the Social Media Superchargers. And the beautiful thing about social media is the fact that you do get to meet people from all around the world. I mean, Rick met the person we had lunch with yesterday, and who's also from England, and who actually lives in Australia now, and he met through a e-learning podcast that Rick does, and every time he flies to the U.S. now, he goes to visit Rick. Malcolm, he meets people. The social media has been the most amazing interconnected space. If you choose to listen to your intuition, I mean, you can tell whether you want to meet someone, whether that person is authentic or whatever it is that you're looking for. It's there. You just have to open your eyes and look for it.
The other thing that I've also developed as well, so that I'm understood to more people around the world, is that I don't speak with my local accent. Because if I do, a lot of people will just go, huh? But if I go into it briefly, why, you're not just the way we talk like over the way up here. But see, I'm not a true Geordie, as they say. I am from Durham. But because I like travelling, I want people to understand me. So hence my accent.
Now, you have almost a little bit of a Scottish accent, no?
Not too far away from Scotland.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, we're closer to the Scottish English. I hate to use that because that might insult a few Scottish. And sort of like what you might term as the Queen's English, shall we say. We're like the in-between bit.
So, Rick, we were met for lunch yesterday, and so why don't you share a little bit about, because I think it's also good for people to understand the transition from the IT world into how you even got into multimedia, and then we're going to get into a little bit of hypnotherapy and the mind and then conscious and fear and all that. But I think it's really good. A lot of people don't understand, the transition. And Malcolm, I do want to address your accident, because as you know, I also have medical problems, and it's very fascinating that, again, the world of multimedia, the world of the internet, even if you have some challenges or you're having some medical challenges or whatever that challenge is, that is one beautiful thing about the world of internet. You can still work, you can still connect, you can still mentor, you can still teach, you can still inspire through means like Skype and Facebook groups, Twitter. And so it really is a phenomenal place that we're in technology in this world right now. So, Rick, why don't you share a little bit about your IT transition as well? I think that would be really helpful for people.
Well, my background originally started in banking back when I was in my early 20s, got out of school, and then wound up, I had a minor in information systems, and I like computers. When I first got on a computer, I think I was about 18, my first computer class, a long time ago. That's back in 1972. And I was hooked. And we didn't even have monitors in those days. We had a teletype terminal. And then when I got into the next year, I think I was 19 by then, there was a monitor. It was about 3 feet deep and probably about 14 inches in. I mean, that was it. And it was an oscilloscope, basically, that could print letters. And I don't know if you guys remember that. But it was the good old days. But I was hooked. I loved computers. I found I liked programming. So I became a programmer. Wound up programming, got into systems analysis, project leading, wound up in IT management. And I really enjoyed the technology part of it. That part was just a lot of fun. And then after doing that for probably over 25 years, I've always been involved with training and, to a certain point, really not multimedia, because we didn't have multimedia back then, but we had media. And I liked e-learning, what little we could do on green screen terminals and then later on with PCs. And in the mid-'90s, it was really hard to find good programmers, period. In the U.S., there was just they were getting harder and harder to find. Everybody was going to India. And we said, you know what, we didn't really want to offshore. And I've always had other interests. As you know, I taught martial arts since I was very young. I was involved with martial arts for a long, long time, still am. And I had an interest in things, teaching. I like teaching. I like doing that part of it, but I love multimedia. That was fun. All of a sudden, voiceover, microphones, video, and all the authoring tools. And so we got into multimedia, and kind of a little bit like Malcolm, I've always had an interest in the psychological part of it, from neurolinguistic programming. I think I started reading about that when I was in college. Fascinated by it, just fascinated by that whole side of life. And so for me, these are all easy transitions. I think it was probably about the same for you, Malcolm, where you kind of naturally go from one thing to another. I don't consider these, walls. It's not like you're in a wall. It's more of a bridge. You transition from one thing to another pretty smoothly. things happen, whether it's an accident, whether it's a change in life, whether it's something that made you want to do something different. They're little bridges that take us from one place to another, and that doesn't mean you can't go back to your IT roots or other things. It just means that you're doing other things you like.
Yeah, as well as that, because I already have IT knowledge, that's helping me with regards to doing the hypnosis that I'm on doing at the moment. Because I understand how the software works, so you can record it and then mixing it, and also some of the little tricks that you can do with the sound to give the effect that you want. A lot of it's just by playing around with it and by accident, but that's the whole pleasure of it, and then being able to use that to give a much better effect. And I think Carly can sort of like back up on the one that I sent her recently of how I'm using the ability to be able to be in both sides of the ears rather than bang in the middle.
It makes a huge difference. I mean, as there's so many different, there's binaural beats, there's paraliminals, there's subliminals, there's hypnotics, and it really does make a difference when you're recording and you're using the left ear and the right ear. And so if you're getting sound from both ends, it actually affects the brain actually very differently than if it's just coming straight on from. And you, Rick, obviously, you must know a lot about this as well in terms of sound. And I've been playing with sound vibratory music and all levels of hypnotics and the paraliminals, the subliminals, and all that. And I found the most effective ones are the ones that are using the left and right, the bilingual, because it gets into the unconscious a little bit differently. And then also like the recording that Malcolm just did, actually, it's finding that kind of perfect balance of hearing the words so that it's that kind of drony voice that takes you down and under into the unconscious levels, and at the same time also being able to literally articulately still hear the words. So it's not like someone's mumbling through the meditation or mumbling through a subliminal. It's that every word can actually be understood, yet at the same time it has that beautiful balance of hypnotic voice, the pacing and the tonality, and it takes you further and further in.
Now, it's interesting because on the binaurals, you have to be a little careful. Some of it, if it's done too strong, or depending on because they have one for, they have so many different types, and there are different, for example, vendors who sell prepackaged, here's your meditation one, here's your success one, and here's one for better health. You have to be careful when you do some of these. Some of them take you into such a deep alpha state or theta state that you may not come out real quickly. I actually had an experience. I was doing one from, I think it was Kelly Howell. It was very interesting, but I'm sitting at a stop sign, and I blacked out, literally. I mean, my brain had not yet gotten back to, and it took literally 2 days to get my brain back to normal in terms of the waves, where I felt like I was in a constant semi-sleep state. And so that wasn't good. That was too strong, too much. Probably not the right one for me. I've done other ones that are fine. So you just have to kind of know yourself a little bit and how you'll react or be affected by some of this. And I think I'm pretty relaxed as it is. So when you get me something that relaxes me too much, bye-bye.
It puts him into a coma.
Oh, I'm gone.
That's a really important thing that you just brought up, by the way. I tell all my clients, because I'm always sending them resources of different programs and different, there's so many teachers out there that teach different programs. And I always tell them, there's some voices that are grating. I can listen to one hypnotherapy by one person's voice, and I seriously cannot. I have to turn it off. The voice is so grating to me it's actually hurting my ears. I can't even handle it. So I'll send people a bunch of different people to go listen to. So you have to find one that resonates with you. It's like when you find a teacher, and even in school, you have some teachers that you love that you resonated with, and others that you didn't. And it's the same thing with people. When you meet someone, it's kind of like you instantly have that feeling or knowing, I love that person. And then sometimes you'll meet someone and you go, oh my God, I want nothing to do with that person. And you don't necessarily know why. It's just this inner sense. Sure. So it's the same thing with the voice. You have to listen to a lot of different ones. And I have them put labels and warnings. When I send anything to my clients, it's like, look, do not listen to this when you're driving. if you could do it early in the morning before you do start to work, I always tell them do it. I will set my alarm 2 hours before I get up. You know when you get up in the wee hours in the morning to go to the bathroom and then you can fall back asleep? I will then turn on a lot of my meditations. But then I'll actually go back into that twilight sleep. And I only do that for like an hour so that I have another hour of space that I'm getting up from a space of not with that. So that when I am finally awake, I'm in a full consciousness state. Now, I do have a couple of them that actually you can listen to not while you're driving, however you can be walking, which I love the walking meditations. So a lot of times when I go for my nature walks, I'm taking my flower pictures, I will listen to the ones that actually say you can do this when you're walking. So you really have to just know your sources. You have to know the source of the people that, because look there are a ton of people out there teaching hypnotics and paraliminals, subliminals, all that. And there's some that are really good, and some of them I've honestly seen have been dangerous. They're claiming to know about megahertz and vibrations and, do this. And that's one thing I wanted to bring you on, Malcolm, because I really do want to talk about the unconscious and fear. Because time and time again I've seen this, even with emotional freedom technique, the tapping technique, okay? If someone's got a ton of crap in their background, abuse and, that post-traumatic stress disorder, they can do 1,000 hypnotherapies. They can do 1,000 clearings and if they don't have someone to work with them and teach them how to do it properly and walk them through, they can do 1,000 of these things. It's like Malcolm and I were talking about the self-help, and this is something we're definitely talking about, Malcolm, is the self-help guru industry. And the people that are like, self-help junkies, and they go to course after course after course after course. And Malcolm, I want you to share that story. You said you were and we won't say the name of the seminar because I want to be respectful for the teachers. However, he was talking to a couple of the participants, and they're like, you think they'd be in a better place, but they're actually in debt, and they're nowhere. And so when people have these claims that just do hypnotherapy and everything's going to be okay, do this paraliminal, everything's going to be okay, you'll never smoke again, you'll never eat again, you'll lose a ton of weight. I tell people to run because it's not that simple. If you got all that unconscious junk running around in your mind, that ripple effect plays out in all areas of your life. And you have to find someone to work with you to help you get through those waters.
Yeah, not only that as well, is that, the hypnosis tracks I'm going to be doing are sort of like general ones to help people get to where they want to go. But with regards to using hypnosis, people listen to maybe 1, 2, or 3, one after the other, and that just scrambles everything.
Right.
You need to stick to one for at least, in my estimation, for about 2 weeks. But it's only there to help you get to where you want to go. It won't make you, because if you don't want to, nothing will make you do it unless you're held down and brainwashed. And that's not what I'm about. It's helping people get there, but they already have the desire to do that. And that's the key thing. But what Carly says about where some of these big meetings take people to, there was one guy where people were coming back out of it, so to speak, but he was just stuck, and there was tears streaming from his eyes, and there was nobody there to help him. He had to literally leave. And thankfully, when I saw him the following day, he was, bright, smiling, and, bouncing again. But I thought, that just wasn't done well.
No, and it's sort of funny because a lot of the people who do this don't really have a lot of formal training or even informal training. They kind of come into it. A lot of it just do it for the money. And when you get that kind of emotional release out of someone, they have no idea what to do. Or it's kind of like the psychotherapist who says, all right, you've got your 30 minutes. Let's bring out the most dark, inner, horrible secrets in your life. And hey, your time is up. See you later. And the person leaves completely messed up. They're just, it's either half out or it's coming out, and there's nobody there to help them. That's really an interesting approach to life, isn't it?
It's dangerous. It is such a dangerous time with psychotherapy and counseling. And that's why I always tell people, it's like, find someone that understands you, find someone that's willing to work with you. And that's why I like like I said, the internet world. Like, I do life coaching with my clients, and I speak to clients in Africa and Alaska, all in Canada. And the thing is, though, they all know if they're having an issue, they can email me and say, look, I'm having an emergency here. I'm going through this. And so if there's an emergency, we can do an emergency Skype session. And they do. They have daily. I encourage them to email me every single day to let me know where they are, what they're doing. And I'm not talking about like synapses and paragraphs, just like a daily little thing. I'm working on this today. I'm on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm doing this. And that way, and again, if they are in a crisis mode, I can intervene. I can help them in an emergency situation.
Well, yeah, but it's interesting, Carly, because a lot of therapy could easily be replaced by friendship. Mm-hmm. People talking. It's amazing how much you can get out just by talking to a friend. And a therapist is sort of like many times a paid friend. And after your 30 minutes are up, you go find yourself another friend. But it's sort of the whole system is sort of skewed. I remember studying psychology in school thinking, there's something really wrong with this. And I had a scientific background. So to me, I kept saying, okay, it's an art. It's not a science. There is the neuropsychiatric or the neuroanatomical and neuropsychiatric part of it. But most of them don't focus on the neurological part of it or how the brain works and how patterns happen. They're focused on, let's get the emotions out. What are we going to do with them? Who knows? It doesn't really matter. So I think more harm's been done than good half the time by therapy, if you will. And how many people are in therapy for 30 years? It's like, not yet, huh? It's just a long time. And that's because the techniques don't work. And a lot of times, like Malcolm was saying, a meditation session or an NLP session can get so much more literally in a short time than years of therapy.
Mm. Oh, absolutely. I agree with that completely. The difference is, though, a very key thing that Malcolm says is, I tell everybody, you have to meet me halfway. A, I can't do all the work for you, and two, I can give you, and Malcolm, we can give anyone all the tools in the world. If they're not willing to do the work, they can do hypnosis for a month,
right.
And if they don't continue to do the work, they're going to fall right back into their old habits, right back into their old ruts. And that's the unconscious monkey mind, sabotaging you left and right. And so you have to create, like, it's that whole 90-day thing. They're like, 30 days, you're just starting to break a habit, 60 days, 90 days. And then it's like, and I hate to use this analogy, however, it's like the alcoholic who finally, falls off the wagon, if you will. They're back to square one. Mm-hmm. So that's the other thing, what you're saying about friendships, why friendships are so important. I do want to address one thing you said, though, Rick, in terms of a paid friend. The scary part is, though, some people go to therapists because they won't tell their deepest, darkest secrets to a friend in fear of embarrassment.
Sure.
They're going to be judged. And an impartial person is basically, they're never going to see this person again. They can choose never to see the person again unless it's a crime. They have all these legalities and boundaries to protect them. So it is a very interesting balance of friendship. And that's why I love, like, what Malcolm and I do, the life coaching and the mentoring, and even what you do, Rick, and the e-learning, because that form is much deeper and richer because it's more of a circle of friends. And by having these groups, you can have these types of conversations, and the walls do come down, and you do share with others things that you would not normally share.
Yeah. Malcolm, how did you get into neuro-linguistic programming?
Just by being me. The feedback that I've had is that I'm a people person. I just seem to have an ability to go into somewhere and just deal with it. One place that I worked at, this team leader used to always want me to be on the team because if ever came across an angry user, he would send me in because I would just bring them down and get them to a point where we could sort out what the issue was. So I then came across, I was doing it before I even knew what NLP was, and then I did some reading on it, and then when I saw that it was more changing someone's pattern and taking them out of their normal mode of, for example, being angry and upset to, where they're just not going to accept any help to where they will accept something. There was one engineer I was working with, and he just basically didn't know what to do, so I basically got a hold of him by both arms, nice and gently but firmly, and looked straight into his eyes, and I said, "It's okay," which immediately changed how his physiology was, and he calmed down pretty much instantly. And he said, "Wow, thank you very much." He says, "That's the first time anyone's done that for me, and I really appreciate it." And from there, because he was ready just to quit the site, and he stayed, and he actually enjoyed it more. And what he found annoyed him beforehand just didn't have any effect on him at all.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a case of trying to, with NLP, as you know, it's more changing how people, take them from the old mode that's not doing them any good, and bring them into a new way of looking at things, but in a way that sometimes challenges them, but in most cases you can bring them around gently, because I find it tends to last longer that way, because they're more open to it, and they can then move on with their lives knowing that they've got that ability which they perhaps didn't think they had before. It's just, in one sense, NLP is encouraging but developing that belief to a newer level.
And I think that's a good, accurate thing, because it's taking old values or old belief systems, and in a weird way, we're blasting through them and giving them. It's kind of like if you have a tiny pinhole to look through, and all you're seeing is through that tiny pinhole of depression and negativity and pessimism, and then you have a mentor or a coach or a friend or whatever, and they're starting to expand that pinhole view for you, so you can see there's all these other opportunities. It's not just left or right or straight. It's up, down, sideways. There's all these different views and ways and twists and turns. And so we're just basically giving them a broader spectrum, a broader view of what is available to them. And then it's like Malcolm and I have been on the phone. We've talked for a length many different times. We're talking about also, a lot of the programs that are out there are tailored for everybody. And one of the beautiful things about what Malcolm and I do, and even what you do, Rick, on a certain level, is when we mentor people or work with people, we're finding out what works for them as an individual. Because not every single thing is going to work the same for everybody. One hypnotic is not going to be as effective to another person. They may need a different, tonality or pacing. They may need a moving meditation versus a still meditation. They may need more silence, some may need more something that's more active. So for us to think that what we're teaching applies to everybody, and that's why people go all these seminars. And of course, they're teaching a cookie cutter approach. They're teaching a cookie cutter blueprint, and that's, by the way, why I haven't put out a lot of programs in print, because I don't want to do that, because that's only pigeonholing one way. And every person I work with, I have to tailor it to their needs, to how they think. If they're more visual, they're more auditory. And that's what I love about neurolinguistic, programming, is because you're talking about people that are more visual, people that are more kinesthetic, more analytical. And until you know what type of person that person is, you have to find something that's going to work for them. And for me to send, okay, follow these 20 steps, and tell every single person to follow these 20 steps, it's not going to have the beneficial outcomes, because it's not going to work for everybody.
Well, no, that's what happens with people all the time, that they find one thing that works for them, or maybe work for one or two other people, and that's the cure. And there is no other cure. It's only that cure. And that's also called delusion. But we won't get into that. And you left out one important thing: cattle prods. They do wonders to change behavior, but we won't go there either.
So now, Malcolm, you get to hear his cynical sense of humor.
Malcolm's from IT. He knows what that can be like.
Yes, it's strange that one thing I learned in the IT world is that when I first started doing support, one of the questions was, why did my computer hang? And I'm thinking, well, I wasn't there. I don't know what it is that you were doing. How do I know why it's hung? And then a couple of years whilst I was into it, I came across a very good friend who said, Malcolm, give them an answer. It doesn't matter how ridiculous or illogical it is. Just give them that and they'll be satisfied, because we have a psychological need to have an answer.
Right.
It doesn't have to make sense. So I thought, okay, then give me one as an example. And I use this a lot. And so he said, well, why don't you tell them that there's been a problem with the magnetic fields between the Earth and the Moon. And their computer just happened to be at the very crux of that problem happening with the magnetic fields, and that's why their computer hung at that time.
Yeah.
And I thought, what? Anyway, I tried it, and I got the look of, what? But because I said, well, I don't know what happened, you've got to restart your computer, that's the only explanation I can give you.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next time they phone up, they have a completely more relaxed saying, their magnetic fields have gone into hibernation or got mixed up because they can't remember exactly what it is that you said. Can you come and have a look at it again? And they have a whole new way of dealing with issues in their life.
It's funny. We had a tech come out to. I remember I was working on a system and the hard drive went bad. This is when hard drives were about 2 feet, and the platters. It was 10 megabytes back then.
Yes.
And they spun, and the tech comes out and goes, "Well, I know what the problem is." I go, "What is it?" And there was one of the users was there, and he goes, when they spin, sometimes the letters slip off the disk. And I started laughing. And he goes, and the lady goes, the letters come off the disk? He goes, there's little hooks, micro hooks. And every so often, if it's going too fast, they'll come off, and then we just have to come back, put them back in, and we're fine. And she goes, oh, okay. And she would call up after, same thing. She'd call up and go, I think the letters are spinning off the disk again. Can you come and so stuff like that. Now, when you said the hang one, that reminded me of another joke I pulled on a user once, where they said the same thing. I got a call saying, my computer is hanging, and I said, your computer's depressed. It's suicidal. All you have to do is reboot it, and we should be okay. It just needs a little bit of energy. And they thought, oh, okay. Computers get depressed? I go, absolutely. They have operating systems. They're not perfect. So they have past problems they have to deal with. But you're right. People just want an explanation. They don't care how outlandish it is. But as long as it's something better than just my computer broke, I hate my computer, then they're happy. It's
they have
interesting.
a whole different way of looking at doing their work then.
Yeah, it's called redirecting.
Yeah.
And that's what a part of neurolinguistic reprogramming is. It's actually redirecting the mind to something else.
Yeah.
And you guys I'm sure you've both heard of the study. As Malcolm was saying, our mind, we abhor a vacuum. We need to know something. We need to know an answer. And they've actually done studies by putting someone into a CAT scan or in an MRI, and they hook not actually no, what's a CAT scan? They put you, we hook you up your brain to electrodes, and right before you go to sleep, they give you a math problem. And then they do a PETA scan, and they would find out that the entire night your brain would be going to the math, the problem where you solve math in your brain to solve that problem. So all night long, the brain was working on solving that math problem. So we as human beings, just in nature, the way our brains work, if it's when we're like little kids and they're always asking why. I mean, it's an endless why. We as human beings always need to have. We need to know, as we're very curious creatures. Yeah. We need to learn. We're always wanting to learn, to know, understand how, why, and so it is. It's very fascinating. And I thought that particular experiment was pretty cool because it just shows that you do all night long. You're absolutely going to a place of attempting to solve your own inner issues, your own inner conflicts. And so again, like through anything, IT or anybody, giving them some sort of answer, whether it's true or not on some level, just to break the pattern or break the monotony of that situation, allows them to let go enough to see something else or experience something else.
Well, the other thing with them sort of tests as well is that I remember seeing a documentary where they were able to ask someone to make a choice. They had them in one of these electromagnetic machines, and they knew 6 seconds before the actual subject did which choice they were going to make. And that delay, when I realised that, can be used in the right way to help somebody change how they think. Because when we make a decision, we think it's instant, but we've already made it prior to when we say something. And it's sort of like, when going into this sort of arena, you've got to be very, very careful, because the subconscious, which controls all our automatic stuff as well, is trying to protect us. And if you come in at it from the wrong way, you do more harm than you do good. And as nice as it was going to a big event, it's very generalized. But the thing is, in that generalization, there are individuals who are just not going to get any benefit at all.
Yeah. And one thing that happens also is, as people get into patterns of behavior, the brain grooves. In other words, one reason the brain can be predicted, you know what the answer is going to be almost before you ask the question, is because that's a grooved behavioral pattern. They're so quick to react the same way to everything that it makes it much more predictable. And the problem with grooving is you have to ungroove it by replacing it with a different pattern, which is not easy always,
No.
especially if it's a very deep pattern and they're stuck in it. And a lot of people love their patterns. They don't want to change. I like my pattern. What's wrong with my pattern? I'm not in a pattern. This is the way it is. That's where it gets tough. And that's where the cookie cutter mode, like we were talking about, just never really works, because every groove, every pattern is a little bit different.
And that's something I want you both to address, because we all know about the speaker industry and the self-development industry and all the big boys out there teaching on mass levels. And Rick and I have had the conversations about integrity and, as people go up in the levels, how, they do it on mass levels. It is about money, and a lot of the individuality gets lost. And Malcolm just brought up, again, you had brought up about, that guy being left hanging and, completely out of sorts, whatever. I think, and he said, if you don't do things, you can cause more damage than good. We have to start teaching people that. It's like teaching them a little bit more about ethics and responsibility for what we're doing. We as people do have, if we're going to be teaching or if we're going to be mentoring or whatever it is that we're going to be doing, we have to take accountability for some of the things that we do. And part of that, and that's why you have doing the due diligence. That's why you do an intake form to find out about the person. That is why it's so important to do all these things so that you can tailor something to everybody. And I also believe in also doing different levels so that, not everyone's going to be able to afford, thousands of dollars. So, I do believe in that, some people only want to play with the elite, and that's the only people they want to help. I like playing with all levels because everybody, I look at it as this way. At one point in my life, I was way down there. And I've made a lot of money and I've made no money. And the point is, so for me to only go, I'm only going to play now with people that can pay me X amount of dollars, for me anyway. This is just my personal view. I do use the sliding scales a lot because I want to be able to help a lot of people. And so, and the funny part is the people that I do sliding scales with, when they've gotten to get more because they've broken out of habits or ruts they've helped them through, then they pay me more. I find it's like we get so fixated on one point or one price or one way, we actually can't help as many people. And the funny thing is, it's like self-referrals. When I help Malcolm and Malcolm gets a success, he then goes to refer me. And it may be someone who can pay more than Malcolm. Or, you know what I'm saying? So there's this, I think we need to expand the way we normally think. And one of the things I think is beautiful about the internet is that you can service more people. And so you can, and in essence, get them more, get the money that you need, if you will, if you're at a certain price point, by helping more people in different ways, you know what I'm saying? It's like you're seeing one person as one way and another's another, and at the end of the day, it does all come out. I know. I wish more people would have a mindset of wanting to help more people and not just being so fixated on the dollar amount. Because at the end of the day, I find that when I do it this way, I still arrive at the same point I was monetarily anyway. I still end up getting them more money anyway because I'm helping more people. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yep. And with that, we are pretty much at the end of the show. We've been going on over 50 minutes.
I do want to let Malcolm end, though, with, can you play like 5 minutes of that last...
yeah.
Of that clip that you sent me, just so they can get a sense of the feeling And then when you can send me a shorter clip, and I'll load it up onto the blog post so they just get a little feeling or sense of it.
Let me just
Or
move
don't
it on a
worry
bit.
about it now, and you can send it to me later, and I'll put it into the blog if you want to do it that way. Would that be easier?
Probably yes. I don't know how Skype will pick that up.
Okay. So then the other thing I'd like everyone to know is
Skype won't. We're on mono, so it's not going to be doing the stereo.
Yeah,
Right.
I'll put it in later. But the biggest thing I want everyone to know is that Malcolm has an amazing Facebook page that's called Live the Life You Desire.
Yep, and we've been showing it throughout the show.
Perfect. And so it's a beautiful, beautiful page with very inspiring, empowering quotes. And Malcolm, what would be one final thing you'd love to leave the audience with?
What I would like for people to pick up from my page is to learn how to think for themselves rather than what the education system has done by telling them what to think, so that they can become who they want to be and be the unique, wonderful person that they were created to be.
Oh, you're an anarchist. I don't know about that one. Sort of scary, though, isn't it?
It is, and we're taught what to say, what to eat, what to do. I mean, it's hysterical. I mean, the three of us could have conversations like this, forever, because it's an endless conversation.
Yeah.
Anyways, Malcolm, thank you so much for joining us, and we will be putting up a link later today. And then if you can send me a clip of some kind when I put together the whole blog post, which will have the video feed, the podcast feed. I can also put a little bit of a snippet of your, a little sample of your hypnotic, the one that you just sent me that was wonderful.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed speaking with you both, and this has been a really good experience, and it would be nice to do it again sometime.
Well, I'll have to have you back on, and the pleasure is ours. So, Malcolm,
Thank
again,
you.
nice meeting you too, and Carly, till next time.
Absolutely. Have a beautiful day, everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.